Hello everyone, this is Daughter Darkness, and today I'm going to be reviewing the original Metal Gear Solid game for the PS1. As a bit of context, I've never played this series before recently, but since Christmas I played through all of Metal Gear Solid 1. And I'm obviously going through the series in release order, not counting the original Metal Gear games that I might give a go once I'm done with all the Solid games, but just within the Solid series, I'm doing it in release order. Following this review, I will probably review all of those other games in the series as well, but given the way that I tend to be quite up and down with going through series, like I'll be really good for a while and then I'll drop off. Who knows when those later ones are going to be. This is a fairly old game, so when I'm talking about the story, I'm going to be freely talking spoilers. So if you haven't played the game, then you might want to just watch the gameplay section. So in terms of gameplay, it is a fairly old game. It is a bit dated. But to be honest, I think it's aged pretty well. It's got a almost top-down perspective, and you've got the radar that allows you to sort of see a properly top-down perspective, and I think that actually works quite well for the stealth. Stealth, I think, is a bit easier when it's top-down as opposed to when the camera's behind your back, because it allows you to keep an eye on the guards and see where things are going and all that. And the way the game's designed, if you get caught, then unless you can get away fairly quickly, you're gonna die, because it'll be, as far as I could tell, pretty much limitless guards being fired at you. And I must admit, I'm not very good at stealth, so I get caught quite a lot. But the thing is with this game, as I mentioned, it is quite difficult to survive once you get caught. So it means that it's important to try and learn how to get past the rooms, learn the patterns of the guards and how to get past undetected. I normally end up killing them anyway because it's just feels safer, but that's not always the best thing to do. Probably the weakest part of this gameplay style is as soon as it tries to be anything other than a stealth game, i.e. a lot of the boss fights. While conceptually a lot of them are quite cool, particularly, Psycho Mantis obviously is one of the biggest examples of this for me. Conceptually, very cool boss, but gameplay-wise, it is quite awkward, and I died quite a lot of times just because I couldn't actually aim towards him in time to hurt him while he was open. I have at this point played Metal Gear Solid 2, and the first-person aiming in that makes the world of difference. In this game, because you're still aiming in this top-down perspective, it does just make things quite difficult. And then you get into like fist fighting, using circle to punch and kick. Again, it's a bit awkward because it's one of those things where, like, if you don't land the first punch, you're kind of locked in that direction, so you're going to leave yourself really badly open. Despite that though, mainly for the actual mechanics, considering how old the game is, it has held up quite well, and it is a really good stealth. It is just when it tries to be anything other than stealth, that's when the shortcomings start to appear. But still, gameplay wise, very good. So then into the boss fights. I'm not going to go into every single boss, but some of the ones that made an impression. So Revolver Ocelot is obviously the first boss. And again, he's made awkward by the aiming controls. It's not too difficult once you kind of get a hang of it and realise you can just wait until he's used up all of his bullets and hit him while he's reloading. Then it's fairly straightforward, but it is still a little bit awkward. In terms of Psycho Mantis himself, I already mentioned him once, but the gimmick with the whole, like, you have to put it in controller port 2 thing, I think that's quite a nice idea. And as well as the stuff like if you played any other Konami games, he'd point out, oh, I see you're a big fan of this game, or whatever it was. But I just think the way the fight's set up, he's not very open most of the time, which means that you're having to operate within a very narrow window to actually hurt him, which is a bit difficult when the aiming is so awkward. Sniper Wolf, I think, is a pretty fun fight because the sniper is actually in first person. You fight her twice, of course, and in both cases it's basically just a long distance sniper fight, and I think that is a good way to do things because the sniper does send you into a first person aim, and it's actually a gunfight that works kind of well. Vulcan Raven, I think, is probably the best fight in the game because it's the only one that feels like it's really using the stealth mechanics. because you can actually remain undetected by him, and you can use mines and C4 and that sort of thing to try and ambush him, as well as Nikita missiles and whatever. It's not a fight that you can just face head on as you can with most of the others. You've got to stay hidden and be a little bit smarter, which is this game's strength. As far as the Metal Gear fight goes, it's one of the easiest fights in the game, because if you use the Stinger missiles, then you can sort of get down his health quite quickly, and then you just sort of move closer to Metal Gear to avoid being hit by his missiles, and you're normally not going to have too much trouble. Then you get into Liquid Snake, which, well, the fist fighting controls are a bit awkward still. It's not too difficult though, so that's okay, and then you get the chase scene, which I think is a nice kind of climactic battle. So then, moving on to the story. And considering how crazy the story would get, you know, even at the point where I am in the series now, this story is relatively simple. It's got all the undertones and stuff, how, you know, you're a clone of Big Boss and Liquid Snake is your brother and all that sort of stuff. But basically, yeah, Solid Snake is sent in to stop a load of terrorists led by Liquid Snake who are trying to get hold of nuclear weapons, and he does it. And that's pretty much the story. It does have other stuff that like sets up the sequel and all the Patriot setup and all that kind of stuff without mentioning them specifically, but on the face of it, it's a lot more accessible than even Metal Gear Solid 2's story, because you can kind of strip back the political commentary and stuff and just go, okay, we're trying to stop terrorists from blowing up people, and that's fairly simple. Snake is quite a fun character to use. The way he reacts to stuff and his interactions with the Colonel, as well as all the villains, it's quite good. As helpful as obviously the big thing with Metal Gear Solid, it's stealth and dialogue, and there is a lot of talking in this game. I think the codec calls can get a little bit tedious because there's not really anything going on, it is just dialogue being thrown at you. But this game certainly doesn't feel like you're watching a film, in the way that the following games would start to feel. The villains in this all have distinct personalities, they're all quite fun to get into. Psycho Mantis is obviously the highlight out of all the side villains, because of the way that he like looks into your back catalogue of games and his gimmick with the controller port and all that sort of stuff that just works really well for what they're going for with him. Cyber Wolf as well, I think, is an interesting one because of his backstory with Snake that actually adds different dynamic and makes a little bit of a shade of grey that makes it not be just Snake good, bad guys bad. This guy is somewhere in the middle. It is just a really good, tightly written story that left room open for the brilliant insanity that would follow. So that's the review and the basic point of things. It's an old game. It does feel like an old game, but it's aged fairly well if you get used to it for a bit. It did take me a little while. I think it was once I defeated Psycho Mantis, that was the turning point. That was when it felt like I was making progress and I'd kind of gotten used to how the game operated. And once I got into it, I finished the rest of the game, I think, in a day. And then I was desperate to move on to the next game, which I couldn't do for a week or two because of other reasons. But yeah, that was the lasting impression it left on me. It took a while for me to get into it, but once I did, it was a great ride. And it made me want more, which is very helpful when you're playing the first game in a long-running series. So that's all I have to say for this one. Please leave your thoughts about the game in the comment section below the video. And while you're down there, please like this video if you did. And if you liked it, then check out my other videos and subscribe to this channel. And as always, thank you for watching.